In my family's world, a man's worth is measured by his bank statement. The honor of a soldier like me? Just something that can't pay for a dinner at the Pinnacle Club. And to make sure I remember my place, they sent two reminders almost simultaneously. One was a summons to Dad's birthday party from my stepmother, Cynthia. The other was a warning from my half-sister, Haley. Dress properly. Don't embarrass the family. They've never seen me as one of them. I'm just an annoying social obligation, a soldier with a meager salary. But tonight, they're holding a party in a building where the security system is provided by this very same annoying obligation. So the question is, will I continue to play the outsider, or is it time to remind them that sometimes the soldier in the corner is the one who's really controlling the chessboard? I am Cole Marshall, Major in the Special Forces. To the outside world, I am a symbol of honor and service. But within my family, that reputation is just a cover for a half-hearted career, a meager income, and a source of shame. The dust from my last mission hadn't even been brushed off my boots when my phone vibrated, as if to remind me of that half-hearted career. It wasn't a call from command, but two messages. The first message came from Cynthia, my stepmother. Her tone was cold and concise, like a command. Your father's 65th birthday party, 7 p.m., the Pinnacle Club. Be there. Not a single word of concern, not a hint of affection, just the location and time, as if summoning a subordinate. Almost immediately, the second message appeared, this time from Haley, my half-sister. Cole, if you're coming, please dress a little more presentably. These are all Mom and Dad's important guests. Don't embarrass the family. I put the phone down and let out a long sigh. A familiar sense of exhaustion washed over me. It wasn't the physical exhaustion of a stressful few weeks. It was the weariness that had been ingrained in me since my mother died when I was 12. My father, in his grief, sought comfort and found Cynthia. And with her came a completely different value system. Our house was once filled with books and laughter. Then, it became filled with discussions about social connections and net worth. And Haley, my half-sister, quickly became the center of this new universe. As for me, I became a relic of the old life, a reminder of the wife my father was trying to forget. Joining the military wasn't just a choice, it was an escape. So, yes, to them, I am a discordant note in the symphony of success they're trying to perform. They only see Major Cole Marshall. They don't see, and I don't intend for them to see, the founder of Vanguard Solutions. The only reason I put up with them is for my father. He's a good man. He's just too soft when it comes to his second wife's material values. So, I will go. This is also a mission on a different battlefield, one that requires a different kind of strategy. Instead of preparing weapons, I prepare a gift. In my safe, beneath Vanguard's classified documents, is something even more valuable. A classic Patek Philippe, the 1958 model. The watch my dad used to talk about with sparkling eyes as a distant dream of his youth. It took my team months to track it down from a private collector in Geneva, and I spent 2 weekend evenings meticulously restoring the movement by hand. I placed it in a simple oak box with no label, no ribbon. Its value is not in its appearance, but in its story and the sentiment behind it. That's something Cynthia and Haley would find hard to understand. And tonight, maybe I'll give them a lesson in true value. My pickup truck looked completely out of place as it turned onto the road leading to the Pinnacle Club, a place built to celebrate wealth. Sleek luxury cars glided past me, stopping under a glass arch, where doormen in crisp white uniforms moved with well-trained efficiency. I handed the keys to a bewildered-looking valet, then stepped inside, my hand still clutching the oak box. I had only taken a few steps on the marble floor when a figure blocked my way. It was Cynthia. Right behind her was Haley. They didn't greet me. Cynthia grabbed my elbow, a grip strong enough to guide me, and pulled me to a secluded corner behind a large pillar, away from the eyes of the other guests. Cole, I thought you weren't going to make it, Cynthia began, her voice soft but sharp. Her eyes swept over my suit, a well-tailored but unmarked suit. You know, the liquor bill alone for your father's table tonight is probably more than your monthly salary. I just don't want any awkwardness. Just make sure you behave yourself. Haley, standing with her arms crossed, glanced at the simple wooden box in my hand. She smirked and asked, "Oh, is that a gift for Dad? I hope it's not something from a gift shop on a military base." She gestured with her chin towards a young, dapper man standing not far away. Then she continued proudly, "Bryce, my fiancé, just gave Dad a limited edition set of Callaway golf clubs. Now, that's what you call a gift." I said nothing, just watched them in silence. My silence seemed to irritate them even more. "Listen," Cynthia said more sternly, "go inside, find a table in the corner, and sit quietly. Don't talk to anyone unless they talk to you first. And leave early after you eat. Understood?" I just nodded. They seemed satisfied with my submission. Haley gave me one last look, a mix of pity and contempt, before turning on her heel with her mother, heading towards her waiting fiancé. From a distance, I caught a glimpse of my father. He looked our way, his face showing a clear look of awkwardness and helplessness, before he quickly turned away when Cynthia waved him over. I stood there alone for a moment, the wooden box in my hand suddenly feeling heavy. I watched their backs, then looked into the main ballroom, where laughter and the clinking of glasses echoed. The mission had begun. The target was identified. Now it was time for reconnaissance. A waiter led me to a two-person table, tucked away in a corner near the kitchen entrance, discreet enough to avoid attention, but with a clear view of all the key points in the room. As I watched the expensive suits and silk dresses glide by, I couldn't help but think about the distance between our two worlds. Their world was built in glittering boardrooms and deals sealed on golf courses. In that world, there was never any room for a soldier like me. But they didn't know that the person they ignored was the founder and silent owner of Vanguard Solutions, a private defense technology company. My second career was not nurtured in peace. It was forged, and it bore the name Vanguard Solutions. It was not born in a boardroom like this one, but out of frustration, in a dusty tent in Kandahar. I, a young signal soldier, was fed up with slow, vulnerable communication equipment. So, in my spare time, I started writing code just as a personal project to keep my mind busy between patrols. The result was a new, faster, and more secure encryption algorithm. Money was never the goal until I showed it to Mark. Mark, my best friend from basic training, who had left the military for a business career, saw a billion-dollar company. I only saw a way to better protect my comrades. We made a deal. He would build the empire, deal with the boardrooms, and the press, the noise I wanted no part of. I would stay in the shadows, continuing to develop the core technology. I didn't need the title of CEO, I just needed the title of Major. Mark would be the public face. I was the hidden brain. From this seat, I could clearly see each of my pieces. Over there was Mr. Davenport, CEO of a major industrial conglomerate. 3 weeks ago, he was practically begging Mark to sign an exclusive component supply contract. That contract wasn't born in this glittering boardroom, but out of frustration in a dusty tent in Kandahar. Back then I, a signal soldier fed up with slow equipment, wrote the first encryption algorithm myself. Mark, my best friend, saw a billion-dollar company in those lines of code. I only saw a way to better protect my comrades. Davenport's contract is still on my desk, waiting for the final signature. Near the bar, Senator Hayes was patting my father on the shoulder affectionately. The entire cybersecurity system for his campaign was provided by Vanguard. Of course, he only knew Mark as the CEO, the face of the empire, and would never have guessed that the hidden brain was the soldier sitting in this corner. My father, Richard, looked a little out of place amidst the glamour. He would occasionally glance my way, his eyes showing a flash of guilt, before being pulled into another conversation by Cynthia. Then I saw Bryce. He was loudly bragging about a deal of the century that was about to close. I almost laughed this morning. Vanguard Solutions had just refused to invest in his company due to a disastrous risk assessment. Perhaps having had too much champagne and wanting to show off, Bryce broke away from his group and headed towards me. He stopped in front of the table, holding his wine glass with an arrogant air. "Cole, is that you?" He sneered. "I thought this was a party for professionals, not a place for soldiers. I guess you're here for family sentiment?" A few people in his group snickered. I didn't respond, just looked up and stared straight into his eyes for a second, the gaze of a soldier who is used to assessing threats. He paused for a moment, then shrugged and turned away, muttering something to his friends. I didn't retaliate. In a combat environment, the first person to lose their cool is usually the loser. I simply noted the information. The target had marked himself. Unprofessional. My eyes drifted to the main table, where I saw my father clenching his hands under the table, even though his face was trying to remain calm. I lowered my eyes to my water glass. The provocation had been noted. The target had revealed himself. The appetizers were served. Then the main course. I barely tasted the expensive steak on my plate. My entire focus was on observing, listening, and waiting. The empty conversations, the fake laughter, it was all just background noise. I was waiting for a signal. The signal came. The light tap of a glass rang out, drawing the attention of the entire room. My father, Richard, stood up. He looked uncomfortable under the lights. He said a few generic words of thanks, his voice a little shaky, thanking the guests, thanking Cynthia for organizing a wonderful evening. Short, safe, quick ending. As soon as he put the microphone down, Cynthia immediately stood up, as if she had been waiting for this moment all evening. She took the microphone, a radiant smile on her face. On behalf of Richard and the family, she began, I want to thank all of our distinguished guests for being here today. She then spent a few minutes praising Haley, and especially Bryce. And of course, we are incredibly fortunate to soon have a talented, successful son-in-law like Bryce, a true pride of the family. Bryce puffed out his chest, his face full of smug self-satisfaction. Then Cynthia turned to the corner of the room where I was sitting. Her smile changed, becoming a look of fake benevolence, her voice just loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. And we are also very happy to have Cole here. Although a soldier's life can be difficult, the boy made an effort to come and celebrate. Family is always family. The room grew quiet. A few people glanced over, their eyes filled with a mix of curiosity and pity. Bryce still hadn't had enough. Wanting to curry favor with his future mother-in-law and show off, he stood up, putting his arm around Haley, and said in a condescending tone, That's absolutely right, Mom. We should thank Cole for his service. It takes a very special mindset to choose that path. I'm sure Dad is very proud of him, though he would probably be even prouder if his son could create real value, instead of just bringing an old wooden box. But hey, it's the thought that counts, right, everyone? That arrogant comment was a slap in the face to all the soldiers I had ever served with. That was enough. The last straw. The plan was no longer an option. It was an order. I pulled my phone from my pocket, scrolled to a name. Mark. I sent just one word. Execute. I put my phone away, my heart rate steady. On the outside, I was just the soldier sitting quietly in the corner. But on the inside, I knew a machine had started to move. The awkwardness following Bryce's speech had not yet dissipated when an unusual scene occurred. Mr. Sterling, the senior manager of the Pinnacle Club, a man with salt and pepper hair who always carried a serious demeanor, was walking quickly through the tables. He wasn't heading for the stage or to my family's main table. He walked straight to my table. Cynthia and Haley watched, surprised. Bryce frowned, probably thinking the manager was coming to deal with an inappropriate guest. Mr. Sterling stopped in front of me, then bowed with clear respect. Major Marshall, he said, his voice calm but clear enough to be heard. We didn't know you would be here tonight. Is everything to your satisfaction? The private suite on the top floor is always ready as usual. The room fell silent. Every whisper died down. Cynthia was the first to break the silence. She stammered, her voice full of disbelief. Major? Why? Why do you call him Major? And what private suite? Mr. Sterling looked at me, a little flustered, as if seeking my permission. Before turning to her, Ma'am, Major Marshall is not only one of our most distinguished members. His company, Vanguard Solutions, also provides all the security for the Pinnacle Club worldwide. The phrase Vanguard Solutions echoed in the silent space. Mr. Davenport's eyes widened. Senator Hayes sat up straight, but that was just the prelude. Just as the name Vanguard Solutions hung in the air, the two large doors of the ballroom burst open. Mark walked in. He wore a sharp, understated business suit, but his presence immediately commanded all attention. Following him were two assistants, each carrying a folder. The important guests, like Mr. Davenport and Senator Hayes, all stood up. Their faces were a mix of eagerness and caution, like students greeting a principal. Mark just nodded in acknowledgement, completely ignoring the handshakes. He walked straight through the tables to mine. He clapped me on the shoulder affectionately. "Cole, sorry I'm late. The meeting at the Pentagon ran longer than expected." Then he turned to Bryce, who was still standing, his face rigid with shock, and said in a voice that sounded like advice, but was as cold as a sentence, "I don't think you need to worry about creating real value anymore, Bryce. Vanguard just completed the acquisition of your department's entire portfolio of distressed debt this morning. You should start updating your resume. We'll be starting with a reduction of underperforming positions on Monday." Mark placed a thick file on the table in front of me, the Vanguard Solutions logo prominently embossed. Silence fell over the room. It was so heavy you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. The silence was broken by a stammering voice, Mr. Davenport. He pointed at me, then looked at Mark with an incredulous expression. "Marshall? Vanguard Solutions? My God, you're Mr. V?" That nickname, Mr. V, a legend in the defense technology industry, the mysterious founder whose face no one knew. The name that was just uttered was like a bomb exploding in the room. If the name Vanguard Solutions was a thunderclap, the nickname Mr. V was the earthquake that followed. Senator Hayes shot up from his seat, the wineglass in his hand nearly falling. The other guests, the CEOs and politicians, now looked at me not with curiosity or pity, but with a mix of astonishment and respect. They were looking at a ghost. Bryce's face turned ashen. He stumbled, having to steady himself by grabbing Haley's chair. Haley looked from Bryce to me, her mouth agape. But Cynthia, after the initial shock, quickly shifted to another emotion: fury at being betrayed. She stepped forward, her voice a snarl, pointing directly at me. "If you were really that successful, why didn't you tell your family sooner? Or do you enjoy being pitied?" Bryce, in a panic, also found his voice. He shouted, his arrogance turning into despair. "You have no right. You have no right to ruin my career just to make a point." I was not angry. I did not argue. The anger in me was a cold, controlled current. I stood up and picked up the file Mark had placed on the table. I flipped directly to the page with the words, "Risk Assessment, High Risk Investment Portfolio," highlighted in red. I turned the file towards Bryce, so he and everyone else could see the charts and numbers that said it all. My voice was not loud, but it was full of weight, cutting through all the whispers. "This isn't personal, Bryce. This is business. Your company is a legal and financial liability. Vanguard doesn't invest in liabilities." I turned to Cynthia, my eyes calm. "And to answer your question, Mom, this is why I didn't tell you. With you, it was never about who I am, only about what I have." Finally, I looked straight at Bryce one last time, honing in on his earlier sneer. "Anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks to you, I can see what real value is. Maybe next time, Vanguard should sponsor a few more communication skills courses for veterans, so they know how to shake hands and talk properly at a club like this." My words hung in the heavy air. Bryce couldn't utter another word, just stared at the file as if it were his death sentence. The party broke up, not with music, but with an awkward silence. Bryce left silently, without a word to Haley, who was now slumped in her chair, sobbing. Cynthia tried to put out the fire, running from table to table to explain that she always knew Cole was special, but no one cared anymore. The guests quickly found their way out, avoiding the messy chaos of my family. I ignored it all. Walking over to my father, who was still sitting motionless at the main table, I gently placed the oak box on the table in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad." I didn't wait for him to reply. I nodded to Mark and walked straight out onto the balcony, seeking some fresh air. As I turned on my heel, I caught a glimpse of his trembling hand touching the wooden box. He opened it, Amidst the chaos of the unraveling party, he sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the watch face as if time had stopped just for him. After nodding to Mark, I walked straight out onto the balcony, seeking some fresh air. A few minutes later, my father followed me out, not looking at me but at the city lights below. "The watch?" he said softly, his voice breaking. I opened it. It's it. Yes, I replied. He was silent for a long time. I was wrong, Cole. I was so wrong. Yes, I repeated, not with blame, just the truth. Can you forgive me? His voice was shaking. I turned to look at him. For the first time in years, I truly looked into his eyes. It's not about forgiveness, Dad. It's about respect. You never respected the path I chose. You, like them, only respected what could be measured by a bank statement. I paused, looking at the city's brilliant lights. Now, you can tell everyone that your son is the owner of Vanguard Solutions. That name is probably worth more than a major, isn't it? I'm sure that will be impressive enough for your dinner parties. I left him standing there, lost in his own thoughts. I walked straight to the private elevator leading up to the suite Mr. Sterling had mentioned. Tonight I would not be driving my pickup truck home. As the elevator doors closed, separating me from the mess behind me, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt a sense of relief. Finally, I had reclaimed my place at the table, a table I built myself, in a room I owned, under a roof I paid for. And that was worth more than any belated approval. Mission accomplished.